This week's show is supported by Bite Away, the fast and reliable way to deal with insect bites and stings. Bite Away is a state-of-the-art battery-operated device that uses concentrated heat directly onto bites and stings to treat pain, itching and swelling. Just press your Bite Away, which is about the size of a chunky marker pen, onto the spot where you've been bitten by a mosquito or stung by a bee or wasp, whatever it may be. Press the button and the heat acts quickly to stop the itching and start to bring down the swelling. You can use Bite Away up to 5 times an hour on the same spot of skin, just leave at least 2 minutes between applications. It's great for the whole family to use and it's suitable for allergy sufferers and children. They can use it unsupervised from the age of 12 and you can use it during pregnancy too. I've been using Bite Away for about a year now and it really works. Bite Away is compact enough to stick in your first aid kit when travelling, or maybe you'll be putting it in your pocket when you're working in the garden or hiking. And with around 300 applications before you need to change the batteries, it's the perfect no-hassle solution to insect bites and stings. Bite Away is available from Amazon for $29.95 or from your local high street pharmacy. Find out more at mybiteaway.co.uk. That's mybiteaway.co.uk. On the Ledge podcast is on a journey to houseplant fabulousness. Hello and welcome to On the Ledge. I am your host, Jane Perrone, and this week I actually got to leave the house. Yay! I am out of COVID isolation and negative, thank you science and double jabs. I have been to visit Tony Le-Britton, aka Not Another Jungle, to bathe myself in a houseplant collection that may well make you go weak at the knees. And I answer a question about a bare naked Hoya stem. Important On the Ledge news coming up. This is your 5-second warning. Important On the Ledge news. I am going to be taking a break over the summer for 6 weeks. The reason for that is that I have a book to write. I am very much aware that I have 700 plus people who are all pledged to support Legends of the Leaf, my houseplant book, and are waiting eagerly for it to be published. And so I really need some time to crack on with the manuscript. My illustrator Helen Entwistle is working super hard on the illustrations and I need to get on with the manuscript, and making a weekly podcast while my children are on summer holidays means that there's just not enough time in the week. So there's going to be an episode next week, that's July the 16th, and the following week, July the 23rd. Then there will be no more episodes from then until September the 10th. That is my plan at the moment. I hope that I can stick to it and come back to you in September with new episodes. What does that mean if you are a Patreon subscriber? What it means is that I'm going to pause payments for the month of August because there will be no episodes coming out that month. For the months of July and September, I will be putting out my usual 2 extra Leaf episodes, plus hopefully a few extras to make up for the fact that there's no main show over that period. If you've paid on an annual basis for your Patreon, 1 month will be added on to your subscription. I'm going to send a message out to all my Patreon subscribers just to explain that, so do look out for that message. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to leave you all for such a long period of weeks, but as I say, I need to get this book written. It's really important to me that it's good quality, and so that's what I'm planning to do. You can keep in touch with me over that time on social media. I will attempt to be around on social media, and I will still be hosting Houseplant Hour over on Twitter at Houseplant Hour. So I won't disappear from your life entirely. And do remember, there's a whole back catalogue of over 190 episodes to listen to. And you can check out the thematic guide to episodes, which is available on the front of my website, if you want to check out old episodes or look for a particular topic. So I'm really sorry if that's a disappointment that you're not going to be getting episodes over that 6-week period, but I hope you understand the reasons why. Thank you very much to Kaido from Australia for leaving a lovely review for On The Ledge, and also Zelena98 from the US, who also left a delightful review for the show. And thank you to new Patreon subscribers. Stacey, Canaroo and Nathan became legends, and Lena and Sally became crazy plant people. I had an email from Robert, who got in touch about episode 165, my leaf shine episode, and as well as making some very lovely comments about me, which are always welcome. He also came forth with a suggestion for dealing with dusty leaves on really large plants. Now, Robert has a large monstera which has unfortunately got spider mites, or suspected spider mites. This plant's 7 feet tall, so he didn't really feel like moving it outside, especially as it was planted into a large cement pot. Man, that's going to be heavy. So instead, Robert tarped off the carpet and walls and drenched the tops and the bottoms of the leaves with insecticidal soap to treat those spider mites. And he reports that the next day, when the dripping had stopped and the liquid evaporated, I was treated to a most welcome sight. My huge plant no longer looked dirty and neglected, but rather appeared as if each leaf had been wiped by hand and sprayed with a satiny shine. I was surprised by the effectiveness of the dripped-off solution, since film, dust and a bit of greasiness from cooking often take quite a bit of effort to remove. I can't promise identical results if listeners' plants are truly grimy or spotted with insecticide or hard water residue, but for this hobbyist it felt as if I'd won a small lottery. I used the Safers brand of soap, but I imagine any other would do the same job. Well, thank you for that, Robert. I love the idea of you tarping off the carpet and walls. I think I probably watched too many crime dramas, because that just reminds me of some kind of horrific murder. But anyway, I can see why you did that, because it can make quite a mess when you're spraying the insecticidal soap around. But a great solution for your spider mites and also for shining up those leaves. So thank you for sharing that, Robert. Earlier today, yes today, I'm turning round the episode that fast, I went to visit Tony Le-Britton, aka Not Another Jungle. Here's what happened. Tony Le-Britton, we're here in your house. I'm slightly in shock here because it's been a while setting this up because of COVID, etc. But we're here in your plant-filled home. I've met your two wonderful dogs. This could turn into a dog podcast at any time, but that's okay. We are here in your wonderful home in Northamptonshire, and this is a bit of a shock for me because, as listeners will know, aroids ain't my strong suit. No. But I'm loving your collection, and we've already been inside your greenhouse. We're going to take listeners inside your greenhouse and around your collection. I just want to know really how did this happen, Tony?
I don't,
you don't look old enough. You don't look old enough to have a successful career as a photographer.
I have a good doctor.
This huge collection of rare aroids.
So, the passion for plants was just that. It was all plants for such a long time. I grew up with my grandparents, and as many people were inspired by their grandparents or their parents. And I was really lucky that my granddad was really passionate about growing vegetables, and my nana was really passionate about growing flowers. So I spent my childhoods strapped to a chair before I could stand up on my own, so I could be at the bench and have my fingers in the compost and help my nana plant seeds. And I've always just had a passion for plants. It was never really anything specific. And I think if you love plants, you find a way to have them. And through the years, I've had different things. I had my first allotment when I was 10 years old. I got it as my Christmas present for my parents, because the only way you could actually skip the waiting list was to buy a shed or a greenhouse that was already on an allotment. So they bought me this shed and greenhouse for Christmas. And I think that is where the fascination with the heat and humidity started. I had a little paraffin heater, and I used to love to grow all my vegetables and plants like in the middle of winter, stepping from outside into that, when you just get hit with that wall of heat. And every time I go into my greenhouse now, that's what it makes me think of, like right back then, or even younger, my nana's utility room where she used to lock herself away to do all her propagating. And the first collection I had was quite a few years ago. I'm quite a collector. I like to collect specific things. I used to have coins and all different things. And the first one was orchids. And that just literally started by picking up cheap orchids. My nana loved orchids, so I used to buy her them as a kid and take them to her. And then when I got my own place, that was when the danger really started. I shouldn't be given my own bank account or money or space or anything. I shouldn't be allowed it, because my obsessive personality takes over. And I ended up having over 100 orchids in a very short space of time. Started with just really generic things, and then I ended up finding out about the species Phalaenopsis and different things and collected those. And then I moved out to Asia, just total random, I'm moving to Asia kind of thing, dropped my job. And I think that is where the passion for the jungle type, really lush green and huge plants started. And when I got back, I moved into a house which had a beautiful garden, so my passion for plants was fulfilled in the garden. And I always had house plants, but I lived in a medieval cottage. It had terrible light. I had my massive Tradescantia in there. That's where it started life, and it was a decent size. But then when I moved to my flat that everyone knows, because that's when I started the Instagram, for a lot of people, that's when I started plants. But that flat, I was originally looking for a house with a garden, and I couldn't find one that I liked. So I said to the estate agent, just find me a house that I can grow plants in. And they couldn't get one with outside space. So I found one where I could just bring a garden inside. And with that roof light over the top, plants just absolutely thrived. And then a number of things happened. At the start of last year, my nana passed away. And because plants were such a big thing between us, it was just a really nice way to just, bring something positive out of such a horrible situation. And then lockdown happened, and, it just evolved, it just exploded. And the plants just took my time, and I was locked in a house, as so many of us were. We were literally locked in a house. I didn't have any outside space. So I just let the passion take over. And I grew what plants I had to massive sizes. I started swapping. I had no idea plant community existed. No idea. And I just started swapping with people. And then I started to realise, we had access to all of these incredible rare plants and rare versions of things that we already have. And, that snowballed, and to the point I put a greenhouse in my spare bedroom.
Was there any point in that process where you sort of stopped yourself and thought, what am I doing here? Or did you just let yourself run wild?
No, I just let myself run wild. I'm just very much like, if you want to do something, it's not hurting anybody else, just do it. Something brings you joy, just go for it. And when I do anything, if I commit to doing something, I'm going to do it 110%. And I just had to do it.
And you've garnered this amazing following on Instagram on your account, Not Another Jungle. Was that kind of like, not another jungle? Or was it,
really was.
What was the tone of that name?
It has multiple meanings. So when I first found that people had plant accounts, I was like, what? This is a thing? And I thought, okay, I'll set up a page. I've got this place now. I'm going to be able to grow plants. I also have a lot more time because I couldn't work because of COVID. So I just thought, let's be a bit ironic and just a bit fun. When I realised how many plant accounts there were, I was like, let's call it Not Another Jungle. Like, oh God, not another jungle, not another plant page. My friend also has a salon called Not Another Salon, and her whole ethos is that she's just doing things really differently. And I think because I learned to garden outside first, I do look at things very differently when it comes to indoor plant care. And I really do see indoor plants as a garden. So I just wanted my opinion to be not like others.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think that outside approach, bringing that inside, does bring a different perspective. Can you talk a bit more about that in terms of how that plays out in terms of things like pests and watering?
Well, first of all, when it comes to actually choosing the plants, I'm a lot more aware. I think outdoor gardeners will say, okay, I have this soil, I have this light, this aspect, and this is what I want to achieve. So therefore, I'm going to go and look for this kind of plant. Whereas indoor gardeners see a plant that they like and they try and make it work in their home. We all do it. I still do it. But I'm a bit more aware of that. So I'm definitely more aware of what conditions I have in my house and which plants I can grow successfully. When it comes to pests, I'm really relaxed about pests. I know pests are such a huge cause of stress to a lot of people, but I have pests in my collection. I will always have pests in my collection, and I'm really just about managing them. In the garden, you never ever seek to exterminate things now. You obviously do have predatory insects out there, and there's a bit more of an ecosystem. But if I can just act as that predatory beetle, I don't dress up, but if I can just act like that, just my hands in the air and my antenna. But if I can just act as that predatory insect and keep the numbers at a good, healthy level where the plants can still thrive, my plants thrive. And I have pests. I have thrips, which send shivers at people. But it's really, for me, not about exterminating them, because trying to get to that is almost impossible, if not impossible, with such a big collection. So you're just going to give yourself stress. And one thing I do not need with plants is stress. That's my escape from stress.
How true, how true. Yeah, I think that is a real issue with people, especially I think people who've come to plants afresh and they're just panicking about or a single pest, or it may not even be a pest, it may be a springtail, or it may be, a centipede or something, which, is going to be there. There's going to be... I always give the example of, you realise you've got mites living on your face, which freaks people out. But, I think that's something worth bearing in mind.
You look closely at your pot, no matter what medium you use, and there's going to be some form of life in there. And it's so important, again, this is from outside, it's so important to nurture that ecosystem in the pot because, it helps the soil structure, it helps roots absorb nutrients. And, repeated pesticide use, whether that be natural or synthetic, is not only killing the pests, but it's killing the ecosystem in your pot, which is eventually going to have a detrimental effect on your plant overall.
Yeah, exactly. You're Mr. Aroid. You have a greenhouse in your house. In this new house, you have a greenhouse kind of in your house, which we'll go and look at. But if people... lots of people are putting in IKEA cabinets and things, but for those of us who aren't at that stage yet, or don't have the room or the inclination for that, what are the aroids that really will do well in, I want to say now, that's a very difficult thing to describe, an average home, but just what are the real toughies that we can rely on to do well?
So the majority of aroids, even the things I have in the greenhouse, could be acclimated to grow in the home. They're not going to grow as fast or as big or as reliably, and you might get some more problems. You might have to manage watering a little bit more. But they really can be acclimated to most, I say average houses, but some houses have 30% humidity and some have 70, some have a lot of light and some have none. So there's two avenues you can go down. You either choose a plant that you like and then you create the conditions it's going to thrive in. So you can give it artificial light if you have to, you can give it more humidity if you have to, or you figure out the kind of space and conditions you can offer and find plants to fit that. So there's two different ways you can go about it. And, you know, neither is right or wrong, but I think it's just really important to find out what your plant needs and make sure you're giving it.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective, and otherwise we give ourselves a world of pain, don't we?
Absolutely.
just...
The amount of people, I was in the garden centre the other day and people were looking at Alocasia zebrina, one of my absolute favourite plants. And they were looking and they were really admiring it because it's spectacular. And they're like, oh, should we buy that? Should we not? And, oh, I don't know if it's going to... So I just stepped in and I said, oh, if you need, some help, I can help you on this. First of all, it needs a lot of light. And I said, what other plants do you have? Well, we have... this monstera, and I said, it needs at least twice the amount of light, if not 3 times what you're given the monstera. So she then went to put it down. I said, it doesn't mean you can't have it. You can get a cheap bulb from online, put it into one of your light fittings, and put it on a timer for 12 to 16 hours a day. Then you can have that plant. And she was like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. Like that you can actually change the atmosphere in your house, and you can grow anything you want.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it doesn't take much to... But light is so crucial, isn't it? I mean,
so crucial.
It's amazing. Whenever I have a problem with a plant now, I've kind of finally realised that mostly the problem is it's not getting enough light, and things that I've kind of been really miserable and I've moved them somewhere brighter have just immediately sparked into life. Yeah.
I mean, the biggest problem is overwatering, right? But it's sort of not. It's that the plant's not getting enough light, so it's not using enough water. It's very if you had a plant in the right amount of light, it's very difficult to overwater it.
Yeah, that's very true. I think it's that thing of, what's that law? There's a law about this. I did this in RHS level 2. I can't think what the law is called, but it's basically, all of these different factors with plants, light, moisture, they're all kind of temperature, they're all kind of linked together, but whichever one is I'm going to have to look this up after the interview. Whichever one is the least is the one that's limited. The law of limiting factors. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And it's that sense of, okay, well, yeah, you're doing great. You're fertilising it. You're getting the watering roughly right, but actually, there's just not enough light, so it's never going to get that.
Yeah, it's never going to reach its potential.
Never going to reach its potential.
Yeah.
I think that's the trouble, is that lots of modern homes don't have that much light.
No.
But you can fix that with lots of modern bulbs and things. It just depends whether you want to invest in that kind of technology, or whether you want to have how you want your home to look and the aesthetic you're trying to create.
That's absolutely it. And it's not necessarily about just finding a spot with the maximum amount of light. So I've just moved into this house, this new place, and in my other house, it was north facing, but it had big windows, so it gave me a lot of really lovely diffused light, and the plants thrived. Here, it's southwest facing, so you'd think, perfect, it's getting lots of light. Absolutely not. I'm really struggling and having to adapt my planting and placement of plants because they're getting too much light, too much direct, intense light that they can't cope with because they're not used to it.
Yeah. Do you use a light meter, or you just use your eyes? Do you ever get into the light meter territory?
I've just bought a light meter.
Yeah.
And that actually was about the greenhouse. And it was just to figure out, not necessarily light levels, looking at numbers, but just figuring out which parts were getting the light from the panels that I was putting in and which ones weren't. It was very sort of basic like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got one, but I don't. Normally, I can just, I can just use my own eyes. My eyes are light meters. Is the way I think about it.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell if I'm just looking at something what's going on. I mean, we'll get it out occasionally just to prove something, but it's not. Yeah, I find that it's just a visual thing as opposed to anything else. Okay, I want to know about your love of aroids. What is it? Orchids were a previous obsession, but now it's aroids. What is it that kind of draws you in? Is there something about the thrill of the rarity that's making you like, I've got this plant that no one else has got? Or is there something intrinsic that you're kind of like, I mean, I'm just, as somebody who kind of like likes aroid but don't feel so passionate about.
We're going to change that.
I want an insight.
Trust me, you're leaving as an aroid.
Bought you a nice aroid, so I feel like I'm part of the aroid club. I bought you a nice big tie cutting, so I'm that's all good. But I don't know, they don't spark the same amount of joy that other things do for me personally. But what is it about aroids for you that really?
There's several things, definitely. There's so many things, in fact. I love the way a lot of them grow. I love the way, for instance, alocasia and anthurium. I love how the leaves change and evolve from when they first emerge. So the anthurium starts so small and they change colour completely and they're glossy and gorgeous, and then they just expand exponentially into something which looks completely different. The alocasia, the way the volume of them and the size of that they can achieve. The other thing is definitely the feel they give. I love that jungle feel. I like to feel immersed in my plants. You can grow them up a height, so you have to go under them in the kitchen. I have them so you have to walk through them and brush against them. And they can withstand a bit of a battering of me, clunking through or stumbling through after too many gins. And they don't mind it. They don't mind it at all. And also just their availability. The majority of stuff in the house is from, Facebook Marketplace, garden centres, cuttings from people. They're really available and will thrive in your home. I'm really not looking to have anything in the house that doesn't do well, because it just becomes a pain. I don't want to look at a plant that isn't doing well. Yeah. I want to look at plants in all their glory. And then the last bit about rarity, you're so right. You're so right. I do love unusual, different things, because sometimes I get bored of seeing things, especially with online. There's been plants that, yesterday I was at RHS Wisley yesterday and they had a melanochrysum there. And my eyes were just huge.
Big one.
Huge.
Yeah.
Just, towering on the rock. It's incredible. And I didn't like melanochrysum really, because I'm sick of seeing it online. But when you see something like that sparks my interest. So there's two bits: rarity and growing them like no one else does, whether that be in a different way or bigger, or training them a different way. My main passion in plants is propagation, and aroids I find incredibly easy to propagate. I love experimenting with them, and I also love the fact that I can grow them in a greenhouse, which is hot and humid, so I can just escape into that environment.
You're just addicted to that warm fog, aren't you?
I absolutely am.
That's really interesting. That's a very good point. I remember whenever I go into a greenhouse like that, I have that same sort of endorphin release of feels so good. That's an interesting one. Well, let's go and have a look. I think we should go and have a look at things now. I'm just going to keep recording and we'll head down to your kitchen and have a look at some stuff that people will have seen on your Instagram that we can enjoy. You are out in the countryside here. I was slightly worried as I was driving along. I was thinking, wow, I hope I haven't gone really wrong here as I drove down this little, very little track, but it's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I knew after living in a flat with no garden and lots of neighbours and lots of noise in the city that I just had to be in the middle of nowhere. I have no neighbours here, and it's just fields and wildlife, and I'm really privileged that I get to actually have an outside garden now, which I've just spent the last few months building, putting in all the raised beds and borders and growing vegetables and basically expanding my obsession with plants.
It's only going to get worse from here, Tony. That's the trouble.
Trust it is.
So this is a converted barn. So you've got these lovely big beams to hang things from, which you've taken full advantage of. I'm glad to see that you've got some Ripsalis, or is that Lepismium over there? I can't see. There's too many plants for me to see. But tell me about some of the things in here that, I mean, obviously you've got the classic Swiss cheese plant, which is...
Monstera deliciosa, which, I mean, you can see the lower leaves are damaged from the move, but it is loving life in here. It took a while to find the right spot for it. It was over at the back there, it was close at the window, was too much light, so it's very much a sort of Goldilocks of let's just move it, look at the leaves, look at how the plant's reacting, and right here it's put out like 5 new leaves in the last few weeks, so it's really, really thriving.
And what I love looking at this is, one of the things that often annoys me when you see pictures of this plant is that, like, the underestimation of the length of the aerial roots. Like, the aerial roots are just ridiculous, aren't they? What's
They really
about
are.
a metre long? But that's a feature of the plant, obviously, and its way of kind of anchoring itself as it
So
grows.
interestingly, these have only appeared in the last 2 months. All of this growth is 2 months. It's crazy.
That's well over a metre long.
And they're all over the floor. They're growing all over the floor as well. Possibly because it's been moved so much. So the plant is like, I'm being moved, the wind is shaking me, I need to anchor myself to the ground.
That's probably true.
But, you know, the more roots, the more nutrients it's going to take up, the bigger the plant's going to get. So it's not...
Well, it can probably dig into that bit of that pot now. I would say that's probably long enough to actually just bury itself.
It's desperate for a repot. I mean, it's literally...
I was going to say I'm no shade here, but that does need repotting. Given the size of that's taller than me, and the size of that pot, But I dread doing that because that's a stressful thing. I give myself a hernia trying to get them out of the pot, and it's stressful.
I'll probably leave that for another year or so, I think. They're fine. A lot of these are so epiphytic, it's just somewhere for them to hold on to, and then I ply them with fertiliser, and that's all they need.
Tell me about the Tradescantia, this giant waterfall.
It's one of my absolute favourites. I love this plant. It's actually had a really good haircut since moving.
I was going to say, do you find
it's
that...
shorter here.
Because I find when you get... I mean, I've got nothing that big, but when you get plants that have got established like that, you get this kind of like crispy underbelly that just kind of like... if you give it a shake, you're always going to find some dead leaves, which is the maintenance part, isn't it? Keeping that in.
It is. I mean, the place I'm hanging it from here isn't as high as the last house. The last place, this was 10-foot drop. But this Tradescantia is really special to me because I grew this from absolute scratch. I found a tiny little cutting, nodes like that on the street in London, falling out of someone's window, I think. So I picked it up and I propagated it until I had enough to put into a tiny hanging basket. It's literally...
I was going to say, have you ever going to repot that, or is that
There's no soil in there now. It's literally just root. It hasn't been repotted in 4 years, and it started off, when these went in, these were cuttings that went in there. And again, I fertilise it, and when someone isn't coming to look around, it's usually got a plastic bottle on the top with a tiny hole in, so it just drips fertiliser down through it. And I mean, it's happy.
I think with Tradescantia, you can just mess. I mean, every time I've killed one, I've killed a few little ones. The little Pink Panther one, whatever that's called. It's always because I've fiddled around with it too much. Like I've repotted it, and then they just don't. They like, as you say, they like to just kind of be left alone to do their thing.
Love to dry out between watering.
I
actually usually leave it until it's visibly needing a drink. I do that with most of the plants. Wait until their leaves are telling you they're thirsty, and then there's no chance of overwatering. It also just allows some oxygen to get through the soil as well, rather than being saturated with water all the time. So that is one of my absolute favourites, and a real favourite of a lot of people, because it converts people to Tradescantia. Because I think people are used to seeing just those sort of whippy little bits. When you grow it and you're quite harsh with it and just keep cutting it hard back, it thickens up like this. And
it's like topiary, isn't it? It's so intense.
People think there's something inside there.
Yeah, there's a pole or something.
Hanging.
No, it's just the sheer volume of foliage, which is great. I'm going to come around the other side here.
Just walk through.
Now, what is this? Is this Ripsalis?
It's Ripsalis, and I cannot remember.
Is it Bachyphora? No.
I think it might be, actually. I think it might be.
Oftentimes with plant names, something just pops into my head, and more often than not, it's right. It's just my database brain that usually gives me something. I might be wrong about that, but it's got these lovely. You can see why it's called the mistletoe cactus with these little white berries,
full of sticky seeds.
Yeah,
and I suppose it procreates in the same way as mistletoe.
Yeah, exactly.
The seeds get stuck to a tree and then it just anchors itself in there and grows. But this is, it's so much bang for your buck, because it has never, since I got this like 2 years ago, it has never not either had berries or flowers.
Yeah.
So not only is it a beautiful plant, but it just gives you that extra interest. I'm yet to try and propagate this, but I really want to try and grow them from seed.
Yeah,
I've taken cuttings, but I haven't grown them.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Presumably you could smear it on a bit of soil and then
try and smear it on a bit of wood.
Yeah,
in the greenhouse and see if it just tries to anchor.
Maybe it is exactly the same as a natural mistletoe. Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah, it's a beautiful. I love Ripsalis. I think they're just so amazing.
This one is called Tina Turner.
I can see that.
I don't name my plants.
I can see that.
Comedy names.
Yeah,
and that one is Bob Marley.
Oh yeah, okay.
You see that?
I can see that completely.
That one doesn't have a name. No, I don't name my plants, but comedy. Usually after a few drinks, it gets put on a head.
Now tell me about your pots. You've got the bigger plants, of the floor plants. You've got some lovely pots. Are they anything particular from anywhere particular?
So, the vast majority of my pots are waste paper bins.
I love that.
That over there,
yes.
£1 from IKEA. All of those, the majority of all my plants are in black plastic waste paper bins.
Such a good tip.
And these ones, I got a couple of days ago. These are from B&M, £2.
Love it.
If that was sold as a plant pot, £10.
Oh yeah, totally.
And they're just great, they're light, they're really durable, and for me, I have a couple of sort of nicer pots, but for me it's about the plants. I want the pots to sort of disappear, and black really sets things off. The bigger things are direct into big pots with no drainage. I just whack them straight in there.
Well, it's looking good on it, I have to say. I always forget the name of this. Is this what is Chef-Lorraine? Is this Amate? Or is it?
That's the question. I don't know, and I'll tell you why. This came from an office.
Oh, really?
So I have no history on it. It was in a right sorry state. And actually, it really hated my last house. And I was actually going to leave this behind because it was looking so terrible. And in a couple of months, it's put out all that new growth from there.
Yeah.
And then I also chopped it and stuck some in the bottom to thicken it up, and that's taken and is growing as well. So I'm so glad I didn't leave it behind.
It's beautiful. It's really lovely, and they're such nice floor specimens. I think they make a beautiful display. So, and I love also that I know you've talked about this on your Instagram, grouping things together. So you've just got this wooden crate here with stuff. Because you're right. We were talking earlier before we started actually doing the interview about the perils of small plants and why actually they're a lot harder to keep alive. But this is quite clever in that you've got everything going in together and making a little sort of microclimate.
That's it, yeah. Going back to outdoor gardening, you wouldn't just put a pot or plant in the middle of a border on its own. They look after each other and they create a little microclimate. It's easier for you to look after as well because they're all together. You can just water them all in one go. And I also just visually like plants together, in the corner over there, all those calathea. I call that calathea corner. They really help each other to thrive, but also they just set each other off and they look really great together.
Well, I think that does look fantastic over there, all your various calatheas. I see you have a less variegated...
I have a terrible tie.
Well, I've now given you a much superior tie.
I cannot wait to grow that.
Which I was quite happy to offload because it's been annoying my family in front of the TV for too long. So I'm quite happy to have given that to you to take care of. And I look forward to seeing it go absolutely nuts in here.
I can't wait. It's really weird because, that window's west. And it's tucked back here.
Yeah.
And it hadn't given me a new leaf for 8 months before I moved here.
Yeah.
Stuck it there in the corner in the shade, and it's put this big leaf out. which is sort of double or triple the size of the.
I think they get to a certain size, and then they really start ramping it up with the leaf size, and then you really are looking at the leaves getting substantially bigger, which is what's happened to mine. But I mean, my thing with those is just, if it is like hack away. I've had so much success from hacking them back. If you like, my house is not that big, and I just find that hacking them, I can give people lovely cuttings, but also they just come back better than ever. So
I am ruthless with all plants. I'm really ruthless with chopping back. If something's not looking right, cut it back and start again.
Yeah, exactly. And if it dies, it probably won't die, but if it does, well.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've got. I mean, you can walk through here, but it is quite crowded, Tony. Is it going to get more crowded? Are there more things on the horizon?
Of course it's not. I'm sort of nodding while I say that. So, I like to be able to get through and move around and enjoy the space. So, and I'm a little OCD when it comes to lots and lots and lots of pots. I don't like to see lots of little pots around. What I will say is, like, in parts of, like, the borders, as I call them, like, there are gaps. So in Calathea corner over there's a little gap down there. That's going to take probably another Calathea down there, maybe one in the corner. But it's not going to intrude any more on the space. But I do like to just pack plants tight together, like you've got these Aglaonema different back here in this corner, and they just look really nice grouped together.
That is a really nice grouping, actually. I kind of slightly... Dieffenbachia I've kind of fallen out of love with, in that they're so much less happy in my house than Aglaonema, but they are beautiful, and especially now all the new cultivars coming out, there are some amazing, some really pretty, really pretty.
People ask me the names of these, but in every garden centre, depending on which grower it came from, they have different names.
They'll be different. So,
and then this Rhaphidophora tetrasperma here, you can actually see where it moved into this house. So all of this new growth with the big, more mature leaves is when I moved it here, because where I used to have it, it was really, really, really shaded. But it's really enjoying it there. I'm going to give it a chop. I'm going to chop that big one right back, propagate it, put it in a bigger pot,
I think,
just thicken it
for
up.
me, that is the aroid. Like, if I'm going to recommend an aroid to somebody, it's that, because it's just so easy and it's not...
Gorgeous as well.
And if it does get too big, you can just hack away.
And people are always delighted with the cutting of Rhaphidophora tetrasperma.
Definitely. I think it's I just have great joy of whenever it gets in the way, just hacking away at it.
There's a reason that these aroids are really, in commercial cultivation, the common ones. It's because they're the best, or some of the best. They were chosen, and people invested a lot of money in them to to make them available to everyone else.
Yeah. And this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Look at the size of the pot, though.
The size of the pot. It's poor thing. Look at it. The roots are going to just be going nuts in there. This is a huge... Is this which?
This is Alocasia macrorrhiza.
Macrorrhiza, okay. Elephant ear, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I showed people online why it's called elephant ear. When you just shake it like that.
I saw that.
It's like an elephant walking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And this is really thriving. So at first, because it gets a lot of light here. Most of the day it's direct light here. I'm actually using this now to create shade for the Dieffenbachia underneath.
You basically got a forest canopy going on here, Tony.
And this Pseudorhipsalis sort of helps block some of the light coming into the house. But the great thing about Alocasia macrorrhiza is that it will grow in direct sun. You see them in the tropics growing in direct sun. I just had to basically gradually move this forward into the sun to get it used to it. And now it is. I mean, it's put out 3 new leaves in the last two months. There's that one, and maybe this one, I think. Yeah. So it's loving life now.
Yeah, it's looking amazing.
I'm a massive Alocasia fan, and they just seem to grow well for me.
Yeah, they are.
It's Wentia.
Beautiful.
It's just gorgeous.
The leaves are amazing, and I also just really like these, as my children would say, chonk stems. They're just so cool.
Huge, and they have just such a nice powdery texture as well. And the ribs on the leaves here are they're just phenomenal.
Is that a little bit of damage there, or is that presumably that's damage rather than...
Really strange. So obviously, it's not fenestrations.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I found the world's first
that would be
fenestrated
cool.
alligator? Love that.
It looks like it's
really
been folded, like when it was folded, it's got damaged somehow, because you can see the kind of...
So I'll tell you what I think it was. I did a little post a while ago about leaving your leaves alone when they're emerging.
Oh, people fiddling with leaves.
And I was filming this leaf emerging.
Yeah.
And
you fiddled with it.
You know, I banged my phone into it because I was getting really close.
Okay.
So I think that's possibly what it was, or maybe it got a bit damaged in the
See,
petiole.
folks, don't damage your... Don't fiddle around with your leaves. People are terrible for, like, getting things...
Tweezers, cotton buds.
Yes.
Just leave them.
I mean,
Give them
I'm a
water.
fiddler. I'm a fiddler, but I do not do that because it's
If
just a recipe.
stuck, just give it a good soak and it will pop out within a few hours on its own.
Exactly. I mean, like, nobody in nature is, like, using tweezers on to get plants.
Can you imagine just the monkeys sat there like, don't do that.
You know what? I am feeling slightly satisfied by the fact that my Pilea libanensis is bigger than yours. That's the only plant I've got that's bigger than yours.
Well, that only arrived 3 months ago, so let's check back in the year.
Okay.
That's
You want to play, do you? You want to play? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Actually, I have to say, Lepismium bolivianum, mine's also slightly bigger than that as well. I mean, not the size is everything, Tony, but I just want to say that because I'm feeling so attacked by your allocations and their massive size. I have to try to, get one back on you.
One back. Yeah, this is desperate. I mean, feel how light that pot is.
These are really thirsty. These are so thirsty. I find they really do. All those forest cacti, I find, drink enormous amounts of water.
It needs a repot. It's been in that pot since I got it when it was sort of a lot smaller. And it's only recently, it's this year, it started putting out some new growth. So
it's a really cool plant. As you say, it is like hair. These are just my absolute favourites. So I'm living for that. We're coming through. This is the sound of me moving through the jungle as you. And I must just mention this. Is this Escananthus Black Pagoda?
I don't know the variety, but it is.
Well, maybe it's not Black Pagoda because mine isn't. Well, I say mine is like nothing as like as variegated.
It Asianthus.
Well,
is it Escananthus?
Escananthus is I think because you look at the word and it's just an alphabet salad, isn't it? You don't even know. But I think I asked somebody when I was at the Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh where they have the national collection, which unfortunately I didn't get to see, but I think it's Escananthus. But I mean, my attitude to pronunciation is probably the same as yours. It's like, just whatever works. Like if you can get understood. Because when you start to speak to German people or French people or South American people about a plant, even though you're using the Latin and you're using the same word, they will pronounce it totally differently, and it's all good.
And there is no right and wrong because botanical Latin isn't
the Romans aren't around anymore. Yeah, exactly. And it's not all Latin anyway.
Yeah, it's such a mixture.
Yeah, I mean,
but I do love this plant. It's
beautiful,
especially when the light shines through and you see the back of the leaves. It's
really nice.
It's happy.
See, I think this is I think this should be your gateway plant into growing more gesneriads. I know you have got some streptocarpus, but I feel like there's more gesneriads you need to get into. I don't see
I'm sure I will.
An epicea hanging up here would look amazing.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, I'm telling you. I'm just saying. Hashtag just saying.
That is the level of negotiation.
Well,
you should do this. Okay, I need that plant. Okay, yeah, let's go.
Well, mine grows in a pot with no drainage, so like it's ideal for you. It would work great, and I mean, but then it does have flowers on it. You do have flowers on your forest cacti, obviously, but
and the transcantia flowers.
Yeah, and your begonias.
I love the begonia flowers. I'm not a massive bright colour. Like I hate to see bromeliads in pots. I love bromeliads on logs, but bromeliads, sickly green with that bright red.
I'm hearing you.
No.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, let's head out to the greenhouse, shall we? Let's go and explore that. I mean, there's so many. We could literally be here all day.
This is one of my big success stories, and something. It's probably in the top 5 of my favourite plants.
I can see you've got lots of nice new growth. Is this Cellulum or is it?
So this is Stomatophyllum bipinnatifidum. It's been reclassified.
Don't get me started on this. I did a column recently on which plant was it in this genus? One of the plants in this genus, and the stress that the people on the magazine and the RHS had trying to decide. I'm like, no, it really should be Stomatophyllum, and we had a big to and fro about it, and I can't remember what the final conclusion was, but
there's that,
aroids,
which is a huge problem, and then the Philodendron Waterwettii aurea flavum, or you know it as Salem gold,
right? Yeah.
The one that you've also
Xanadu gold.
Xanadu gold. That's right.
Yeah.
There's just an endless, but at the moment it's Stomatophyllum. I just love the new leaves.
They're great,
and it loves. This was a rescue. I got this from someone when the leaves were like this big, and it was covered in thrips to the point it was really affecting the plant. And I just love seeing it really thrive.
There's something about the leaves on this, and also the large alocasias. It almost looks like it's kind of like stretched. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't explain it very much. No, not stretch marks. No, like it's like a piece of. It almost doesn't look real because it's like I can't explain it very well. It almost looks like car upholstery on a leather upholstered car.
That's been pulled too tight.
That's kind of like stretched, and it just looks so amazing.
I think because they grow so rapidly. Same with alocasia. It probably is something like that. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favourites, and really, really enjoying its new spot here on the counter. And one of the plants that actually, that's in a bin as well, it's in a small bin, which I just dumped just like a couple of days ago. I dumped that bin into a bigger pot.
I think that is the best tip ever. I think people spend so much money on. I'm all up for artisanal pot makers and supporting those people, but I'm also up for having my plants in pots because I can't afford to have everything in an artisanal pot. So if I can get a waste paper bin, great.
Yeah, and if you do like drainage, just stick some holes in the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's going to be hot in here because
we could spend another hour talking about your beautiful vegetable patch and beautiful garden. I mean, this is like something at Hampton Court or something. I mean, when are you coming to Hampton Court or Chelsea to design a? Come on, am I getting an exclusive here?
You might get an exclusive. It's definitely. I'm really inspired by the show gardens, but there's definitely a lack of indoor plants.
Yeah.
I would love to join a brand and create a show garden that was the interior of a house, but really filled with plants, not just a couple of potted plants here and there that I have seen before, but really fill it. And
the marker is laid down. Anyone who
there
wants
it is. Come and sponsor me.
Yeah.
I will do it.
I think that'll be amazing. Well, we're here we're experiencing the warm fog that we were talking about earlier.
That heat.
So nice. This is kind of set into, I don't know what this was originally, a niche in the side of your house.
Yeah, so this was part of the old barn. So this was used to store grain and hay and what have you, and then this was that was the swallows. The swallows are nesting above.
Yeah, I can see. You've got a deposit up there. I mean, great source of fertiliser if you wish to do so.
This was the old barn. It should be a garage. It's open fronted, so you get some of the south facing light coming in. I wanted to have a greenhouse outside, but controlling the temperature with the greenhouse completely outside was just impossible in our winters. So decided to put it inside, and this is what I've created.
And what is the construction of this? You've got a wooden frame, and then what's the plastic?
That's twin wall polycarbonate, which is a lot more thermally insulating than glass. Yeah. And on the outside, I've left the structures on the outside, which protects it from the heat and humidity, but also allows me during the winter to probably fill that with some insulation. I'll probably put some sheep's wool insulation onto the roof and possibly some foil on the outside of that, just to really help keep the temperature stable in here.
Well, you've got more space than you had in your old greenhouse, I would imagine.
Yeah, just about 4 or 5 times bigger.
Okay. So people won't have seen this when they saw you on Garden as well, if they did see that. So this is the new setup. Presumably, I mean, like, there's space here, Tony. What's happening? You haven't filled it yet.
I know. So, I mean, a lot of the plants in here are not looking their best, and a lot of them I've already chopped right back. You'll see a lot of empty moss poles because I basically kept my old place and moved here, and there was 2 months where the greenhouse was up in my old place and I could only visit once a week.
Yeah.
And with that, you know, heating was on and off, lights weren't working properly and I wasn't spotting it. I had a fungal infection breakout because I wasn't in and out with the airflow. And so I decided just to chop a lot back. So there's a lot of the oblique species, which were just chopped right back, all the leaves off. And I'm waiting for them. They're actually just starting.
I was going to say they look like they're starting to reshoot. So this is the kind of. Tell me. I mean, we'll get into a bit more sort of really geeky stuff in a little bit of Patreon content, but. I mean, that's the kind of the unicorn that we've all heard about. We've all heard about it's never oblique, but here we are, it is oblique. So what's the story behind your getting hold of the oblique?
So, actually, they are not the oblique that everyone knows. The oblique everyone knows is down below there. That's Monstera obliqua, and that is Peruvian form. So that's down there, and there's quite a few of those dotted around, actually. I've got, because they create runners, have maybe 50 runners, which is part of my giveaway at the moment. But these here, I have around 9 different species, or subspecies, or, sorry, correct term, complex of oblique. And the majority of them don't fenestrate at all. And the actual original oblique described had no fenestrations whatsoever. In fact, the one everyone knows as oblique is most likely actually not part of the oblique family.
See, this is where aroid taxonomy is mind-blowing, isn't it? I mean, I think I always sort of laugh when you see these sort of, you know, people selling something like philodendron. You know, you get philodendron Brazil, and people, obviously that's a heteration cultivar, and then there's all these kind of variations on the theme, and it's like it's just heteration being this weird thing of doing lots of different stuff. And
this is true. Yeah, this is
you
true.
You can tie yourself in knots worrying about getting the latest cultivar of that, but actually it's just nature being variable, like we're variable.
Really, really interesting. Obviously, oblique has a huge range across South America. So this is the Bolivian form, which gets really beautiful, big, sort of teardrop-shaped leaves. Then you have something like Amazonas that will fenestrate massively and look incredible. The Peruvian form fenestrates, but there's Colombian form. There are several. I've got 3 forms from Suriname. There are lots of unknown oblique. there's so many. It's a very complex. But Monstera are my absolute passion.
So did it all start off like the woman who, you know, swapped the bobby pin and ended up with a house, where you bought one rare thing and then you swapped it for something, or you swapped a bit of that for something else? Because I don't imagine that you've necessarily paid big bucks for all of these.
No, absolutely not. It's really strange. A lot of people online look at my collection and they think that I just buy everything, you know. And I mean, that's not a smart way to do it, and it also takes the joy out of it. I think my you know, the most wonderful thing for me is swapping with someone, sending them something like this. This I got yesterday from someone. I sent them one of my variegated Adansonii. They sent me this Hoya one, and you know, we didn't pay a penny for it.
So what it was? Tell me what this is.
So that is Monstera Adansonii variegata, but this is the Hoya, so the yellow form.
Okay, right.
So it starts green, and then the variegation emerges.
See, that's blowing my mind, because I'm looking at that and going, mosaic virus. I'm getting cold chills.
If you think that is mosaic virus, look at Monstera Adansonii mint.
Oh no!
That has been tested.
See, that just gives me the willies.
And strangely, that is all of the Monstera Adansonii are very unstable in their variegation. They either go all green, all white, or, you know, stop.
Because this is the thing with that Adansonii, is there seems to be, I threw mine away because I was panicking that it had mosaic virus because it started to become mottled. But now I'm thinking, did it actually have mosaic virus, or was it just this tendency to be variable?
So the
is there an answer?
There is an answer. There are a couple of different answers. So there is. Mosaic virus in Adansonii.
Yeah.
But the absolute majority that you get are this form of Monstera that we don't actually know is Adansonii. We think it is, but it's not an Adansonii that's known. We think it's actually some sort of tissue culture freak that's happened. There's no evidence and there's no record of it first being brought into cultivation. So we don't really know where it came from or what it really is. But that particular plant, for some reason, is incredibly hungry. And it shows signs of that very readily in the leaves. So you get that patination. And usually after a good fertiliser and a little bit of extra light, it recovers. And I know some people do get really scared. The best thing, if you have any worries, just separate it from the rest of your plants. Mosaic actually isn't that easily transmitted between plants. You've really got to be cutting and using the same tools on multiple plants. But if you have any question, just separate it and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I think I do feel for people trying to build a collection of aroids because, there's no... I mean, I'm old, so, I want a book that tells me everything. But there's no one source. There's so many different information sources, and you must have spent a lot of time doing research for different sources to get all the information that's now in your head. And the information's changing all the time as well. I think that's the other thing.
Monstera at the moment is being reclassified. A lot of Monstera. There are people working out in South America, finding new species, figuring out that what we thought was something isn't that anymore. And I get a lot of questions to ID Monstera because I have done an awful lot of reading on them. But it's actually almost impossible to ID a Monstera unless you have collection data or a plant which is mature, completely mature, which doesn't really happen in cultivation, or with an inflorescence. So it's just one of those mysteries, and I have swapped my way to having 40 different Monstera from at least sort of 30 plus different species. And it's really a key for me to keep a good record, keep them labelled, which I'm in the process of doing. It's all just in my head at the moment. And really only get things that you can trace back where I know 100% that is that species.
What's the help me out here? What's the current thinking with the whole Deliciosa large form, small form, Boschigiana? Is there any can we put that to rest now, or is it still kind of depends who you listen to?
It's still up in the air. Yeah, there's a lot of different thoughts on that. I mean, Boschigiana isn't a recognised name; it was just invented. But use it if you'd like, because people know what you're talking about. But I'd say the easiest thing is just to do small form and large form right now. I've grown both of them in the same situations from nodes, and they act completely differently. They fenestrate in different ways. They grow at a different rate as well, even from nodes which are sort of the same maturity. So in my eyes, they are two different forms of Deliciosa. But, for instance, I have 6 different forms of Monstera adansonii subspecies laniata. That sounds very specific, but every region has a different version of it. So, it's not crazy to think that there might be 2 or even more subspecies of Deliciosa. That was thought as a subspecies of Deliciosa at the moment.
And that doesn't look anything like. It's got a really elongated spear-shaped leaf and that's starting to fenestrate, presumably. What's it going to... What's that going to do? Is that going to continue?
So it does come out round, almost like a large form, but the fenestrations on it are unbelievably spectacular.
Okay.
But it goes through, if you look here, the marks on the leaf, and you see the really pronounced veins, that's where it's going to split. So it turns into almost a trident.
Oh, wow.
But then it morphs completely differently. So this currently is known, not registered, but known as Monstera burleymark flame. I hate the name it's been given. I think it sounds really cheap and nasty, but but it was previously thought of as Ciarana. Ciarana is actually a completely different plant, and Ciarana is also a subspecies of Deliciosa.
Okay.
But has rounded leaves like Deliciosa when it's immature. So it's all.
It's a minefield. It's a minefield.
It's a deep breath and walk forward.
Well, are there any other plants we should just talk about that you really want to highlight that are particularly special to you, or
the ones that thrill me the most, I mean, there are a lot of special plants to me in here because they're some of the only ones in Europe or the world when it comes to species Monstera, but probably things a lot of people wouldn't get excited about because they have just very plain leaves. That's an unknown Monstera, and really amazing if you look at how velvet it is. There's not many Monstera.
But if I saw that on a shelf, I would think, oh, that's some kind of like, epiprem new. I just wouldn't even think anything of that.
It's running at the moment.
It's running. Look at that.
It got left behind and it's running. But I got it as just a one leaf, and I've grown it. But now I can propagate it.
Yeah, you can propagate
all
those nodes.
And its leaves will get really big. And if you imagine when they get big and have that gorgeous reflective texture, it's going to look spectacular.
So do we know what is the name of that current?
Is just Monstera.
This week.
Yeah, Monstera Velvet Peru. We know it was collected in Peru, so we know that. We know it's a Monstera.
Yeah.
Looks velvet. There we go.
There you go. That's
velvet
bang,
Peru.
it's done.
Other things, I mean, I suppose we have to talk about the Rhaphidophora Techsperma variegata because that is just, that excites me so much. The rarity, but also I love the variegated pattern on it.
So is this, I'm not, as anyone who listens to the show will know, I am so not about the price tag on plants, but is this something that, like, you should have, like, a special insurance for? Is this a big price tag plant?
Yeah, huge price plant. Yeah, I mean...
Can I touch it?
Of course you can. Touch it.
It's so cool.
Tip it upside down.
See, I look at that. When you say that, I look at that and go, it's okay. If I'd give you 50 quid for it, but it's for me, and I suppose that's why you don't buy a lot of plants just in the way you're not spending loads of money on the plants, you're swapping them. So does the price tag is really quite meaningless, isn't it? It's just the fact that I suppose it reflects the fact that the plant is very rare and therefore
people want it.
It's desirable,
and also there's almost an insular part where people will buy it as an investment. So I have customers, several customers buy it, you'll never see it again, goes into a private collection. They just want plants for themselves. They don't have Instagram, they don't show their plants, they just want to have it because
do you get rare. People like messaging you saying, I will pay this amount for this plant?
Every day. Every single day. Someone has to buy this entire plant, which is my mother plant, which I wouldn't sell.
Yeah.
I grew that from a rotting node, so it's got a bit of a place in my heart. But they offered me a lot of tens and tens of thousands of pounds for it.
Wow.
Which I said no to because it's worth more to me to just have the plant.
But I mean, I get the sense that you're on the same page as me in that you're not one of these people who wants to keep these plants, or let's keep them rare so the price doesn't drop. Like, you're propagating to make them less rare.
Well, that's the thing, is eventually it will get there. It's gonna the price will drop. It will become more accessible. This is actually out in Europe at the moment, figuring out whether it can be tissue cultured. So I sent one out there to a company, and they're figuring out whether it can be. Probably not because of the variegation.
Right.
But it's always worth a shot, and it will make it more readily available to people. But Rhaphidophora regular is such a popular plant. When this gets secondary fenestrations, which I've had before, it is unbelievable. It's just stunning, and the variegation improves with when it grows. So yeah, that's a really special plant to me. It's the one that got the most press. It was all over the world in newspapers and interviews and crazy things.
Yeah.
And that I think that is wonderful because it means that the regular press is recognising the importance of plants to people. Yeah. Even if they're publishing it because it's really expensive, at least they're publishing something about plants.
Indeed.
A few years ago, they would never have done that.
That's very true. So are these propagations of that plant, or is this something entirely different?
No, these are all propagations from it. So I do these from single node cuttings, and a little tip for people is if you don't want to destroy your plant, where any Monstera or Rhaphidophora this works on, root it onto a pole so it gets a lot of roots, and then what I do is I don't ever cut the top of my plant. I take it out of its pot, take away the moss, and I cut from the bottom. I take the bottom nodes and then move the plant down and the head cutting then becomes the top of your plant, and it's already rooted, so it's just going to carry on.
Okay.
That's
well,
my
that is
little
an
tip.
interesting tip. That is an interesting tip. So what are you doing with these? Are you selling these to people who
So
are...
these have been, all of these have homes already. These are just...
people desperately waiting to get their plants.
there was a waiting list when I first got it. The first batch that went out, there were 10 that went out all over the world. And this is the second batch of them being grown.
Is there anyone like, I'm imagining there's somebody in like their underground lair with their like, are there any like super rich like billionaires who've been like, I must have this plant because it's rare? Like, does that happen? I mean, don't need details, but...
No, 110%. So the majority of people that buy these very expensive plants, like I say, they're not buying them to show off to people. They just want to have them because they enjoy collecting things and collecting plants. Some people buy them to propagate. Some people buy them for themselves. I had one woman who asked her husband for this instead of an engagement ring.
Okay.
And she gets more joy out of it, so why not?
Okay, yeah, great.
When it dies, I'm not sure what that says about
pressure.
marriage.
Bit of pressure there. Oh, that's it. It's so interesting, the different kind of motivations that people have for wanting plants.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, looking at it objectively, I can be like, oh my gosh, this is like a world famous plant. But it doesn't make me personally go nuts. Like I can't. But again, there might be something else in your collection that is quite a workaday thing that I would absolutely fall in love with. In fact,
totally.
So you've got to find what you're into.
It's so true. I mean, some of the plants that excite me most, or the most common. I mean, Tradescantia. You buy it for £1, and it's one of my favourite plants.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of everything, and I don't think you have to narrow yourself into a lane. Just.
Yeah.
Don't be influenced what anyone else is doing. Just get the plants that you like, pay the price for it that is worth to you, and that's it. You don't ever have to explain anything that you're doing to anybody else. You just do what makes you happy.
Well, I think that is a really good note to end on. We will Patreon in a moment, but I think that is a great message to end on, Tony. And thank you for showing me around your awesome Mahusive plant collection. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, wasn't that fun? Thank you so much to Tony Le-Britton. If you're a Patreon subscriber, stay tuned because I'll be putting out a Patreon special with Tony Le-Britton in the next few days once I get the chance to get that up on the Patreon site. And if you're wondering about my references to a tie, I gave Tony a cutting of one of my Thai constellation monsteras because my family were complaining that it was in front of the TV and obscuring their view, and it really needed a chop. So I knew it would have a good home with Tony, so that's where it's gone. Do check out the show notes for pictures from Tony's collection and a picture of me in Tony's collection. And also, if you've not visited his Insta, Not Another Jungle, don't delay, go and check it out. And now it's time for Question of the Week. And it's come from Marika in the Netherlands and concerns a Hoya pubicalyx. And there is a little bit of an irony in me talking about Hoya because I know that Tony Le-Britton is not a great fan of this genus, but as you know, I am. So here's the question. I've got a picture of the plant and it's a young-ish cutting, I would say, in a nice pot, and it's doing that thing that Hoyas do. It's got a long runner, as Marika calls it, with no leaves on it. They're standing straight up, although some days it goes to the side, and at one point apparently this stem even grabbed onto a lamp. And so the question is, does it need to be supported? Why is it moving? It's like it has a mind of its own, says Marika. Well, Hoyas do this thing, and in fact so do lots of plants with a similar growth habit. Think of it this way. Because this plant is one that's going to want to climb and scramble and grab onto things, and as you know, if you've felt the stem of a Hoya, you've got lots of bumps on there, which are the very start of aerial roots. So the plant is always looking for things to anchor itself on. By putting out a bare stem rather than one covered with leaves, it can kind of test the waters, find something to cling on to, and once it's done that, then it tends to decide to put out leaves once that security is there, which makes sense. What's the point of putting the energy into new leaves if that stem is going to get left dangling in space, or possibly going to be bitten off by an animal or something like that? So that's why you get these bare stems. And I do find that once you tie in a bare stem, that's often the point that the plant will suddenly start producing leaves. So if your plant is a lot of bare stems right now, do consider tying them down. So whatever support you're using, just get a bit of wire or that plant Velcro stuff you can get, or twine, whatever you're using, and attach it to your support. And you should hopefully find that leaves will follow. What you do sometimes also find is that a Hoya stem will be produced, and then if conditions aren't quite right, maybe it's a bit too dry, you'll find that one section of that stem may brown off. This is fairly normal. I've had this happen a lot with Hoyas. It just means that the plant isn't quite happy with conditions and it's not going to bother growing that stem any further. It will fall off. You can chop it off if you want to with a pair of clean scissors. And it doesn't mean that stem has finished. The stem will put out a new growth point from that node, the point where the stem of the leaf joins the main stem. It will put out new growth points from there if given the chance. But if you do get those brown bits, it may be a sign that you need to look at your watering regime and possibly your light regime. I'm finding with a lot of Hoyas that they've gone into growth when I've increased the light. Not to say that you need to put them in blaring full sun, but oftentimes it seems to be to me that my Hoyas are not in enough light. They're not low light plants, and so giving them that bit more light might just prompt them into growth. And actually I got a follow-up message from this listener, and I'm pleased to say that the leaves of her pubic calyx have started to grow. They've been attached onto a bamboo tripod, and away they've gone. And that's the most exciting bit with plants, when they really start to perform. Just a note about pots for Hoyas. Lots of people are growing Hoyas right now in clear plastic pots that you traditionally use for orchids. And the reason for that is just that you can see the roots. I was asking about this in a Hoya Facebook group recently, and yeah, it just means you get a really good view of the roots, and it works really well for other houseplants as well. So if you have any clear plastic orchid pots kicking around, do think about using those for your houseplants. It's a great way of seeing what's going on with the roots. And you could also use a clear plastic cup with a hole cut in the bottom if you happen to have some of those lying around. I try to avoid buying new plastic, but if you've already got some, certainly that is a great way to use them to repot your houseplants. You get a lovely view of the roots. It also helps you to see what's going on in terms of water saturation, whether the plant needs watering again. It's a lot easier to see whether it's bone dry or moist just through looking at the soil through that plastic. It can save you an awful lot of time and mess. Bearing in mind I'm heading for a hiatus of the show, I've probably got enough questions now to last me until the show comes back in September. So if you've got a question right now about your houseplants, and now being July 2021, the best thing you can do is to join our Facebook group, Houseplant Fans of On The Ledge. There's loads of really clever plant people in there who can help you out. So please do join. It's a really friendly community. You just need to answer all 3 questions and you will be let into this wonderful community and resource. So hang out there over the summer while I'm gone. I'll be in there as well. So it's a great place to be. That is all for this week's show. I will be back next Friday. Have a fantastic week. And remember these words from the classic film Bugsy Malone. We could have been anything that we wanted to be, and it's not too late to change. Bye! music you heard in this episode was Roll Jordan Roll by the Joy Drops, The Road We Used to Travel When We Were Young by Komiku, and Namaste by Jason Shaw. The ad music was Whistling Rufus by the Heftone Banjo Orchestra. All tracks are licensed under Creative Commons. Visit the show notes for details.